Hi everyone, this is Chandan. You're watching Educate India. Today we are going to discuss about forward and reverse proxy. So proxy is one of the important networking concept, and if you're working as a DevOps engineer or cloud engineer, you should definitely know these proxy concepts. So first we'll understand what is proxy. So a proxy is an intermediary server that acts as a gateway between a user and the internet, or between different parts of the system. So whenever user try to access internet or any server, so proxy is something in between those internet and server. So there are different types of proxies. We are going to mainly discuss about forward and reverse proxy. First we'll understand what is forward proxy. So here we can see we have client and server. So client can have IP addresses. Forward proxy is something in between client and server that is more closer to the client. So forward proxy just sits in front of client. So whenever client tries to make a request to the server, first the request goes to forward proxy, and then from forward proxy creates a new request to the server. Client request will not directly go to server. First it will go to forward proxy, then forward proxy will just send the request to the internet, and then it will get the response from the server. So what is the advantage of putting this proxy in between the client and server? One of the advantages is it hides the client IP. The client can be any machine having the IP address. So in that case, let's say if there's no forward proxy, in that case whenever client tries to request the server, so that IP address will be visible. Server will be knowing about that request IP address. But in case of forward proxy, what happens? Whenever client makes the request to the server, that particular IP address is not visible to the server. First, that request goes to the forward proxy, and then forward proxy has its own IP address. So then forward proxy makes a new request to the server, and server will be only knowing about that forward proxy IP address. So in that case, we can say that privacy of the client IP that can be maintained using the forward proxy. Also, one of the important advantage of forward proxy is we can also enforce any kind of internet policy in any kind of corporate world, any companies. All those internet policies can be enforced using forward proxy. So whenever any user of that company tries to request any resource from the server or internet, so first the request goes to forward proxy, and then forward proxy actually request that particular resource. So those policy can be applied here, whether that's a valid resource user is trying to request, then it can allow that response or it can block that particular response. So those all policies can be applied at the forward proxy level. And also it can cache the responses for faster browsing. So let's say if there are a lot of users requesting a resource, so that particular response or resource response can be cached at the proxy level. So whenever users try to request the same kind of resource, so that can be served using the cache. So that can be served directly from the cache. So that also gives a faster browsing experience. Now we'll understand reverse proxy. The forward proxy sits in front of client. Here in case of reverse proxy sits in front of servers. So we can just here see it's in front of servers. So we can have n number of servers, right? So whenever user tries to request any resource from the server, so the server can have server A, server B, server C, and all the server will have its own IP addresses. So in that case, how reverse proxy is useful? So like forward proxy hides the client IP, reverse proxy hides the server identity or server IPs. So here we can see all the server will have the IP addresses, maybe 10.0.0.1, 2, and 3, right? Whenever client tries to get any resource from the server, so in that case, that particular request will go through internet. It will just first land at the reverse proxy layer, and client will only be knowing about this reverse proxy IP. It won't be knowing about the backend server's IPs. And then reverse proxy will just send the traffic to the backend servers. It will get the response, and then it will send the response to the client. So here we can see the server identity is not visible to the client. Also, reverse proxy has a lot of advantages. So it can balance the load across multiple servers. So let's say we are having 10 servers or 20 servers. So the load balancing can be done using the reverse proxy. So nowadays there are a lot of different load balancers that's quite popular, right? Maybe in AWS Cloud, AWS Load Balancer. first request lands at the load balancer, and then internally it just redirects or kind of distributes the traffic to all those backend servers. Also, reverse proxy provides security and rate limiting. Let's say if there are a lot of different requests coming to the server, so here we can manage the security as well. Also, we can do the rate limiting. We can handle the SSL termination also at the reverse proxy layer. So any encrypted traffic coming from the client to the server, so those SSL termination can be handled at the reverse proxy layer. Also, it can handle the caching. So it can cache the response and then it can serve the response to the client. Just to summarize, we can see forward proxy sits in front of client, reverse proxy sits in front of server, and reverse proxy hides server identity, forward proxy hides the client identity. Reverse proxy has a lot of different advantages of load balancing, security, rate limiting, SSL terminations, caching. So there are a lot of examples of reverse proxy that can be Envoy proxy, HA proxy, AWS load balancer, or kind of CDNs like Akamai, and there are different security tools that can also act as a reverse proxy. In case of forward proxy, we can control the traffic, outbound traffic, we can enforce the corporate internet policies, and also it can be used to cache the response for faster browsing. So that's it for now. In the upcoming video, we'll try to understand more different concepts of networking. Thanks for watching.